Hi, I'm going to reply to this post called Analysis of the Article Clarity by Joao Duarte. The article is on Fallible Ideas. The link seems to have been lost from the quoting, which is not good, but it is Life Articles and then Clarity. I'll put the URL back in when I reply. My first comment is minor, but Joao quotes these two blank lines right here. There's two blank lines here, and they're quoted. First of all, there should be one blank line. There's no reason for two. That's more minor. The slightly less minor thing is, why are they quoted? It doesn't make sense for them to be quoted. Because it says anonymous FI wrote, and then do you want to quote anonymous FI posting a blank line? No, that doesn't make sense. You quote anonymous FI posting blank lines when they are in between paragraphs. Like, it makes sense to quote a blank line over here when it's in between a paragraph because you have two paragraphs and you need a blank line between them. But at the very beginning, it doesn't make sense to quote a blank line at the very start of someone's post. Like, if you read a book, you never see a block quote open with a blank line. The reason there should be one blank line here is to separate Joao's own paragraphs. He has a paragraph that says anonymous FI wrote. Then he should have a blank line, and then he should have his own second paragraph, which is a block quote, which is quite long. So that doesn't conceptually make sense to have that quoted. It's minor because it doesn't make much difference. Like, it doesn't really get in the way. It's not disruptive. There are some ways of screwing up post formats that it makes it hard to reply to or worse to read. This doesn't do that. It just doesn't make sense, but it doesn't actually matter very much. But conceptually, there's no reason to quote it. All right, now I'm going to reply. I have a hotkey set up that runs a script that automatically fixes the quoting at the top, including making that blank line not have a quote mark on it. I'm going to put the link back in. The reason it's not here is this word here. It was HTML in the original post. And when you reply to HTML, you lose links in addition to quoting getting screwed up. So that's why the link got lost. Oh, so it is Joao replying to himself and then Anonymous replying to that. That seems slightly strange. Okay, so this was Joao's first post about this, and it got some replies, and then he wanted to follow up and do more analysis, so he just self-replied to his first post in the thread. That seems fine. So that's why he self-replied. But he's not replying to this text. Like, he could have deleted most of this, because he's moving on to the second paragraph, so he's not talking about these things, so he could have deleted all this and just quoted basically himself posting the link. It's minor, but that would be my preference. It makes some sense to be like, okay, here's the analysis of paragraph 1, here's the analysis of paragraph 2, and like keep them both visible at the same time. But I think it's not necessary because the main idea here is to move on. Like, we're done with paragraph 1. It already got replied to. There's like separate posts about it already that aren't included here. So don't include this like old analysis that's already been answered. Anyway, I'm going to delete it now because it's definitely not going to be relevant very much to my post, because there's the Joao analyzes paragraph 2, and I believe 3 and 4, and maybe some more, and then Anonymous replies, and then Joao replies. So we're gonna look at that now. Okay, so Zhao did not understand this paragraph very well, and anonymous. Okay, what does this mean? Does this mean he doesn't see the world this way, or is having trouble understanding what anonymous is saying? This is not clear. Like, what about it is from another reality? Like, which part? Um, there could definitely be. Oh, he does say I've never experienced that with other people, or if I did, it was very few. Okay, actually, that clarifies. I hadn't fully read what he said. Huh. So I think the reason Joao doesn't know about this is because his confusions don't get clarified. Like, people just they hide their confusion, so people don't even know the confusion is happening. So, like, in normal socializing, you wouldn't expect to see this stuff. People are doing their best to pretend nothing's ever wrong. They have no weaknesses. Everything's great. It means the entire sentences to some extent. This is part of the issue. It's part of the reason. So it's part of what's going on. And also, there is non-binary switching. You can switch to being a little more careful, or a lot more careful, or a medium amount more careful. Okay, okay. It's hard to tell how much Zhao actually understands it when he says things like this. Like, he says he understands, but he hasn't written any text by which I could judge whether he actually understands. Like, he's assuming that he only had one layer or level of errors. Like, he initially didn't understand it, he got help, and now he thinks he understood it. But what he should be doing here is taking his new second try understanding and writing it down and asking if there's anything wrong with it. Because I would say the majority of the time, you're still going to have some other errors the second time. Like, not all of your errors got corrected in the first error correction pass. Like, suppose your error rate is 50%, which is low. Then, half the time that you get help and you think you understand it, you have a second error. But a lot of times there were like 5 errors the first time, and someone replied helpfully and told you the answer to 2 of them, and you still had 3 other errors that were there in the first place. They're not even being created like secondarily. They were just already there. So this is not thorough enough to actually learn what's going on very well. There's likely still confusion. It's not probability. Like, there's an actual fact of the matter, and there's something going on. It's just that I have incomplete information, so I'm estimating that based on like many similar scenarios I've seen, I can make a probabilistic element of that nature. I'm not gonna actually reply to these because I'm making the video. But if I wasn't making the video, then I'd write something. Same problem as the second paragraph, with the things going wrong if one should be safe when things can cause confusion in the first place. Huh. Alright, let's see. Trying again. Here, I have the same problem I had in the second paragraph. It only addresses confusions after they happen. The problem I'm trying to point out is that people do not point out their confusion often. Hence, a more preventative approach to references should be expressed with more emphasis, though it's being expressed in the paragraphs. In this paragraph. He means these paragraphs? Okay. But it opened by saying, like, be really careful with your references. And then also, if there's confusion, be like really, 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 really careful. Like, start by being more careful with them in general, and then also, if there's a problem, be more careful. And try to be like really sensitive to problems. Which is hard. Especially if you're not great at detecting problems, then you should just be more careful in the first place. So sure, I agree. Be careful in the first place. There's always infinitely many things you could clarify more. So you always have to pick and choose and make guesses about which ones matter to your audience. Okay. I wonder if he has like examples where he thinks that didn't happen. Like, I wonder if he has a bunch of examples he could point to, where he's like, I saw this discussion in some blog comments, and here's where the confusion happened, and then here's where the people got way more careful after the confusion. Like, I'd like to see like several of those. I think if he was looking for examples in blog comments online like that, or in YouTube comments, or on Reddit or something, he would find that for every example he finds where people got more careful after a misunderstanding, he would find a larger number of examples where they didn't. The situations that the article is addressing. So this is speaking. Oh, because of the situations this article is addressing, I don't know why it's okay to. That doesn't even make sense. Because of the situations this article is addressing, comma, I don't know why it's okay to start with shortcuts. Oh, because people get confused easily and have these problems, he doesn't get why shortcuts are okay. So the thing is, you always have to have some shortcuts. You can't write everything out in full because that'd be like infinitely long. Like there's infinitely many dimensions on which we could communicate, infinitely many like hints we could give a person about what we mean. We always are giving a person like 50 hints about what we mean out of like millions and millions, if not infinite, that we could give them. So we're always taking like a lot of shortcuts actually. There's just no way around it. Because the world is like very rich in information and detail, and we have to be very selective about which little bits of info we actually focus on. Like if you just look at my computer, how much does it weigh? The amount it weighs, writing it out as a number with full precision, not taking any shortcuts, would have a decimal with like thousands of digits of length of the decimal, maybe millions, I don't know. It's like just writing out the weight of my computer, the decimal fraction would be so long if you had full precision, if you didn't leave anything out. Because you'd have to get it down to, I actually have no idea how many digits it is. It'd be a lot, but maybe it's only like 100 or something. You have to get it down to the whatever like the smallest amount of weight is. One quantum of weight. Or like maybe it should be mass. Well, photons don't have mass, I thought. I just wanted to know the order of magnitude of this. Like, is it like 30 decimal digits or like 300 or... Well, let's just try to find out what the mass of an electron is. Mass of electron. That's like small. Okay, so an electron is 10 to the minus 31. But then it has this much detail. So we've got like, I don't know, 37 digits. Okay, so the mass of my computer might be like 40 digits. But then there's like its height and its length and its width. And not just its width, because it's not like a cube. It has like curved parts. So how do you specify the curve in full detail? There's so much, so many numbers. Another way to think about it is you could think of like a million things you don't mean, and you could clarify all of them. You could write out, I do not mean X, don't misunderstand it that way. I do not mean Y, don't misunderstand it that way. And you could keep doing that, and it would be giving your reader more and more hints about what you mean. But you have to take shortcuts. You have to pick which hints you think the reader most needs. And you have to make a lot of assumptions about cultural defaults, like he'll understand this and this and this because, you know, everyone I talk to understands those, so I can leave them out. That's how, literally how sentences work. I made some videos about this recently that I didn't publish yet, but I was going through and I was taking sentences in a young adult novel, so not too complicated reading. And what I was showing is how every word in the sentence answers a question. It gives you a piece of information, gives you one hint about what the author means, or sometimes like 3 hints or 4, because some words are like complicated and have a bunch of meaning. So like we shouldn't preemptively try to address every possible misunderstanding. So just to analyze this sentence. So the subject is we. Actually, this is not the easiest sentence. I'm going to find something else. Okay, I don't know what this means. This is a better sentence. Or maybe also the sentence is longer than advisable. Yeah, let's try this one, actually. Okay, so what does this sentence mean? The subject is sentence, and the verb is. So sentence is, and then the thing it is, the object is, it's not an object, it's a complement. With linking verbs, you don't have an object, you have a complement. Object is a term for a complement when it is a action verb. So anyways, sentence is longer is the core grammar here. Noun, verb, complement. So sentence is the subject. It gives you a hint about what thing is doing or being something, what thing is linked to something, what thing is acting. There's you can think of it as there being 2 main kinds of sentences. There's action sentences where a subject does something, and there's linking sentences where a subject is linked to something. This is a linking sentence as a linking verb is, which you can think of kind of like an equal sign. So it's saying sentence equal longer. Some of the other linking verbs are less neutral than an equal sign. They give you a bit of extra info. Anyway, so we have like sentence equal longer. So it's sentence is a hint about what we're talking about. Is a hint about what type of relationship we're dealing with, what type of link it is. Then longer is a hint about what it's being linked to. So the first question is like, what is the sentence about? And the answer is sentence. And then the second question is, what is the sentence doing? And the answer is being linked by an is type relationship. The next thing is, what is it being linked to? Longer, length. Longer means, longer is a comparison word. So there's like long, longer, longest. Longest would mean it's like has the most length. Longer means it's longer than something else. It has more length than some other thing that you can compare to. And long just means it has a high degree of length. And how high is like an amount that seems high in our culture. The other words, than advisable, tells you about the type of length. Or the type of longerness. It's telling us about the comparison. So, what is it longer than? It's longer than an advisable sentence. The than gives you a hint about the type of relationship between longer and advisable. And then the advisable gives us a piece of information, a hint, about what the sentence's length should be compared to, which is an advisable sentence length. And note there's missing words here. This is a shortcut. I don't say longer than the length of a sentence I would advise you to write. You could say it much more fully like that, but we leave out a bunch of words. We always do that. And then over here we have also is a hint about how the sentence relates to previous things. So it's like an additional point rather than a direct follow-up. And then the tells us about which sentence. It's not a sentence, it is the sentence. These are different things. It's definite and indefinite article is what they're called. But anyway, a sentence means sort of like one of many, and the sentence means a specific one. So it's called the sentence because it's referring to a specific sentence. And the sentence it's referring to is this one. There's a quote of a single sentence. So this is the sentence being referred to. So this sentence is longer than advisable. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was how like each word gives you an extra piece of information. And if you added more words, you'd get more pieces of information. And then the way reading works is you figure out what each word is giving you, what info it's giving you, what question it's answering, what the hint is. And then you take all of those and you try to figure out, all right, I got approximately, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got approximately 7 hints about what the author's talking about, or maybe 14, depending how you count them. The exact number is not important. But we've got somewhere around 7 to 14 hints about what is the author trying to tell me. And then from that, I'm supposed to figure it out. I have to guess what his meaning is in a way that's compatible with all of those hints. That's how reading works, and you could always give someone more hints. You could give them 100 hints. You could give them 1,000 hints. Most of those hints seem useless, but that is because of cultural defaults, of pre-existing shared understanding. If you try to imagine what it'd be like to talk to an alien who just arrived at Earth, and they don't know anything about the Earth, they don't know your language or anything. If you try to think about sort of communicating with them, you get a better idea of how hard communication is. And the reason it's so much easier between me and Joao, or Anon and Joao, or whoever, is because we have a lot in common. We have a lot of shared knowledge of what the world is like. We have shared language, but not just shared language. We have we both know what dogs are. We both know what cats are. We both know what advice is. We both know what sentences are. We both know what length is. And we know that length is not just measuring like the inches of my IMAX length. It's also measuring the sentences. And sentence length is measured. It could be word count. It could be character count. It can also be like syllables or concepts, but it's normally words or characters is a good enough approximation. So we just use that. So he has I don't have to tell him how to measure sentence length. He already can guess that. And even if he doesn't think of it exactly the same as me, like I think word length and he thinks character length, it's close enough. Like we're still going to be on the same page. If it needed to be in words, and that's the only type of length we're talking about, then Anonymous should have given that hint and said, the sentence is longer, parentheses, in word count. You can give that hint, but it's not necessary because Joao either can guess it or he can guess something that's close enough because it doesn't need to be super precise. All right, well, I'm going to move on now. So I'm actually at this part now. In Portuguese, the direct translations of this sentence make sense. It's hard to me to know when it doesn't make sense. I guess I can end the sentence at confusion. And Oh, in Portuguese, the direct translation of this sentence here. Okay, see, this was a bit confusing because he says this sentence, and I thought at first that he was talking about anonymous sentence, although I now realize there are three here. But it could have been like the last one, maybe. Oh no, but he's talking about this sentence up here. So this sentence is it's a reference that's not fully clear, but it's not super bad. It's like it tripped me up a little. Whenever your reader has to like pause or reread something, or they read something the wrong way the first time and then they have to think about it more, that's bad. That's a sign something's going wrong. The writing could be clearer. However, there are some things that like even when you reread, you still don't know what he's talking about, which is like really bad. But this is not like that. This is once I like think about what he means, I can figure out that he's got to be referring to this sentence here, his previous sentence. So I'm not stuck. It's like a small hiccup instead of a big hiccup that gets me stuck. Okay, it's hard to me to know. He means for me. It's common with ESL people that they have trouble with prepositions. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but one of the things I know is that my grasp of prepositions is very intuitive. Some of them I think are just convention, like we're used to using a particular preposition in a particular situation or to deal with a certain type of thing. Like I think some of it is just like what people are used to, so there isn't really a rule for it. You just have to talk a lot of English and get used to what people say. So that would explain why that part is hard to learn. But also I think a lot of my knowledge of prepositions is not very well verbalized. Like I can explain how nouns and verbs and adjectives work a lot better than prepositions. So I think prepositions are something that are harder to learn the rules for. So that's why ESL people use the wrong ones sometimes. Anyway, so it's hard for me to know when it doesn't make sense. I guess I can end the sentence at confusion, and next I could write, he means right. Sometimes people have problems with tenses and word forms because it's different in their language. I'm not very familiar with Portuguese, but languages vary in various ways. So they don't have like the same tenses as us. I think Portuguese might though, because it's one of those European languages. I think it's a bit similar to Spanish, which I know a bit about. I know Spanish has tenses. So it probably does have like present tense and past tense. But even if you're familiar with tenses, just like learning the English ones can be a lot of work because they're not regular enough. I think Spanish is more regular, so maybe Portuguese is too, which means that the way you modify a verb to change the tense is like the same for all the verbs. Not all of them, but like a lot of them. In English, there are common endings like the ed ending. It's like so I'm trying to think of examples, and I keep thinking of irregular ones, like think, but it is not thinked, it is thought. So then it's like sit, but it's not sitted, it's sat. So, and then I thought of run, but it's ran, it's not runned. So like, what are some simple verbs? A lot of the common verbs are irregular. So like, I just thought of eat, but it's ate. So I need like a less common verb. Smell, smelled. So like the ed ending is a common way to change a verb to past tense. I think it works on like more than 50% of verbs, but it's definitely not all of them. And it doesn't work on a lot of the common ones. So like you go from write, it is not righted, it is wrote. Anyways, this kind of thing where it doesn't follow a simple pattern of just add ed or don't add ed is hard for ESL people because they have to learn like all the special cases that it's ran and ate and sat and thought. Like there's no clear rule for learning these, you just have to learn them. Whereas like with ed, you can learn how like, if you learn how the ed ending works, you can learn that for like 100 verbs all at once. You just learn this one thing and it works 100 different times. But then there's all these other special cases and exceptions that you have to learn individually. Maybe some of them have some patterns, but there definitely are some patterns to them, but there's a lot of individual stuff to learn. All right, when 3 confusions are made, the effort must be maximized. This is hard to deal with. Like his English just isn't good enough here, I guess. He says, end the sentence at confusion. Here it's saying how we should give a certain amount of effort in writing clearly at each confusion. When 3 confusions are made, the effort must be maximized. He's sort of getting tripped up with like the prepositions, like where at the third. This is also a reference, like third. He doesn't say third confusion. If he wrote what type of third he's talking about, that would be clearer. Like third what? This is an example of the type of reference that if you write it out, it's easier to read. Like where at the third confusion, the effort should be maximized. People would have a better chance of figuring out what it means, because it gives that's a useful clue. The problem with references is so often there's like more than one thing it could refer to, and it's hard to figure out. Like, this one, like, there's not a lot of things to refer to, but it's not it's not like a standard reference that people are expecting or used to. So a lot of people's reaction to this, instead of being like, well, there are 3 different things this could refer to, they're just going to not know what it refers to. They're going to come up with, their instant reaction is going to be to see 0 things it could refer to, like just not know what it's talking about. I thought that communication had always those kind of ambiguities, and that those have, that's true. Okay, but this is true in general, but he's like missing the point. Then scenario 2, Zhao writes conclusion C and arguments A3, A4, A5. It is not a full explanation of how to like think. Yeah, most people are like too beginnery. That's true. It's by the way, it's large majority, not big majority. Also, people would more often write suitable instead of suited. It's ambiguous to write like this because when you say not, so what you're writing is like this, and so if you say not suitable for a large majority, so let's say not, let's just call that like not suitable for 80% or more. That's basically what it means. So this is compatible with it could be suitable for 79%. Yeah. Because that's not the big majority, it's only the like medium majority. So there's a issue here with like what I think he means is it would not like there are 80% or more of people, it wouldn't work for them. Like consider a big majority and then it's not suited for them, which is one reading. But it could also mean it's suited for less than a big majority of people, so 79%. So it's ambiguous. This kind of ambiguity is common, and it's not a huge deal because I can guess what he means, but the writing isn't clear. Like I have to guess what he means by thinking about what kind of claim would he want to make. What is his opinion? Why would he be writing this? Like, would he be writing the sentence if he thought, it's only 79%, not 80? If he thought that, he'd write it a different way. He wouldn't be writing this. So I can guess what he means, but I have to guess. Well, if you had more skill, then you would understand the problem. So well, I guess that's a different type of skill. So he's saying it's not like his reading skill, I think. Reading or philosophy skill in general. It's just that the problem itself is confusing. Definitely in some sense, if he had enough skill, he wouldn't have got confused. He'd just figure it out right away. But okay, he's saying like most of the issue, he thinks he has like a reasonable amount of skill, so most of the issue is just that the problem is hard. So this sentence wasn't clear. Like this was bad writing. This was low skill communication because it didn't explain where he was putting the blame. And it's very easy to read this as an attack, as a criticism of the article. Not like a rational criticism, but just like calling it bad. So you should be careful about writing things that could easily be taken as calling something bad if you don't mean it's bad. You don't want to be misunderstood as attacking something when you're not trying to attack it. So that's a problem with this. And so it's both, it's unclear and it's unclear in a somewhat dangerous way. A lot of authors, if you told them this, they would just get offended right away and not think about it. My attitude is different because I have a lot of confidence. So my response to this kind of thing is to think, basically, if the person thinks something's wrong with the article, they can tell me what it is, like quote the bad part and tell me what's wrong with it. And then I can argue with that or agree with it and learn something. Like I'm not scared of that process. And if they don't do that, if they don't give like reasons and details and explain what they're talking about, then I'm just not going to feel bad about it. It's not going to bother me that someone doesn't like something if they don't give persuasive reasoning or clear explanation or that kind of thing. It's good that he was willing to say neither and give like a different answer because the question like prompted him to be like A, B, or both. And sometimes if you tell people like, pick A or B, then they only pick A or B. They don't think about anything else. So it's good that he thought outside the box of Anonymous's question and was able to say something different. People can screw that up sometimes where you're like trying to get a clear answer from someone, like yes or no, and they won't give you a direct answer. But in this case, it's fine. Like it is an answer. And there's also clarifications. Like he doesn't just say neither and then give his answer. He specifically says he thinks the article is well written. So that gives like extra clarification and helps answer better. And that's a good thing to clarify because it means he wasn't attacking it. So he's now realized that like he could be read as attacking the article. Like maybe he thinks the article is written poorly. So he's making sure that we know he's not attacking it. So that's worth saying. Especially when he's not giving a direct answer. Because like if he said, I think it's my lack of skill, he wouldn't need to say he thinks the article is well written. That would be like a direct answer that like I'm picking option B, not option A. But since he picked neither, then it was good to clarify because he is answering in like a less standard way. Anyway, okay, so he thinks the topic itself is confusing. That makes sense. Okay, and then I will send this. I'm gonna add the YouTube video. So I'll add the YouTube video once it's up, and then I'll send this post after that.